Okay, as we are live and it is now 6:30, I can confirm that this meeting begins, and agenda item 1 is to receive apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. I've received apologies from Councillor Skinner, Badibo, Mrs Mackenzie and Mrs Mackenzie Boyle.
Thank you. Are there any other apologies? No? Okay. Agenda item 2 is to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting. Oh, before that, I should also add that I can see the members in the chamber. Can you just confirm if there are any members joining us online?
Yes, joining online we've got Councillor Hayden.
Present.
And Councillor Mossam. Councillor Mossam, can you just confirm that you're in attendance?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So agenda item 2 is to approve the correct record of the minutes of the meeting held on the 29th September. Are there any questions of accuracy of those minutes? If so, can I have a mover for their acceptance? Councillor Virgo, seconded by Councillor Birch. All those in favour, please show. That's carried. Thank you. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. I'm not going to bore you with the whole words of the interest declaration. Does anybody want to declare an interest? I'm not seeing anybody, so thank you very much. Agenda item 4 is urgent items of business. Haven't been notified of any?
No, none notified, Chair.
Thank you. So we move on to the planning applications. Just to let everybody know that the planning application 585, which is the telecoms mask in Oberlin Way, has been deferred to another meeting. So it will not be decided this evening. So we move on then to agenda item 6, which is Shelley Avenue, Bracknell. Basha.
Good evening, Chairman. This is Basha Polnick speaking. I'm presenting this item this evening. So this planning application is being reported to the Planning Committee as it is a scheme which the Director for Place Planning and Regeneration is responsible for promoting. The proposal is to provide 7 additional parking spaces on 2 areas of amenity land in Shelley Avenue. So these are the 2 areas, and then we can just have a look at the plans in greater detail. The first location is to the side of number 6 Main Prize Road, and this would provide 3 parking spaces. And the second location is between number 9, so number 9 is here, and number 11 Shelley Avenue on a grassed area, and this one would provide 4 parking spaces. So we'll just have a look at some photographs. So this is the area between number 9 and number 11 Shelley Avenue, and the 4 parking spaces would be in this area here. And this is another view. There's a footpath that cuts across this area, linking the 2 roads together. And then this property is number 6 Main Prize Road, and the 3 parking spaces would be in this area here. The lamppost would have to be relocated. And finally, this is also the view of the same location, but just taken a little bit further back. I'd like to refer members to the supplementary report, which clarifies that a disabled space is not being provided in the area between 9 and 11 Shelley Avenue as originally indicated on the plans, but this area will provide 4 standard spaces. Both locations are within the settlement boundary, and therefore the principle of development would be acceptable. The loss of grassed areas would not adversely affect the street scene, and It would include the loss of a self-seeded sapling, which we saw in the photograph earlier on, adjacent to the dead tree stump. However, this would be mitigated by the provision of additional landscaping, which would be secured by condition. Whilst the parking spaces would be close to existing residential properties, the proposal is not considered to adversely affect the amenity of neighbouring occupiers in terms of increased noise and disturbance. The Highway Authority has not raised any objection and comment that the proposal will improve highway and pedestrian safety. So in light of these comments, the recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions on page 29 of the agenda as amended by the supplementary report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Basha. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Mrs Hayes.
Not so much a question, it's just to get some knowledge on this. Can we be then, if moving the lamppost, we're going to be doing some sort of greenery and all the cutting up and concrete in. Where's the EV point? Why not?
I actually did ask this, Basha. I think, Andy, you can answer this one because we discussed this on Monday, didn't we?
We did. Good evening, committee. Andy Wells, Highways. Our parking policy at the moment does not require EV charging spaces to be provided for simple parking bays that are not associated with any other development, such as a dwelling or a commercial business, which now fall also under the building regulations part S. And in this location, obviously, we do have the parking EV charging schemes that have recently been subject to a government grant elsewhere in the vicinity. So there is no policy basis for it. Equally, in terms of provision of EV charging, the existing cable network in this area, for example, to the lamp columns, I'm aware is not sufficient to support such a connection. So a whole new connection to the energy network would be needed with the associated costs, etc. So the scheme in front of you does not include EV charge points as it stands.
Councillor Mrs Mattick.
Thank you. Is there a need for a disabled parking space there?
As you know, if a disabled parking space is required, an application is made and then there is sufficient room to be able to allocate that. Okay, yeah. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask a quick question. I didn't see in the report whether there was anything from the tree officer, so I'm imagining it's okay, but I just wanted to check. A few pictures up from the picture you've got there, there's a rather large stump, and I was just wondering if that was going to be impacted there, if that was going to be impacted in any way by where the spaces are going to go, and if there would be any need to remove those. I know they're probably not protected, but I was just wondering if there would be any impact on that from these spaces.
I did actually have an informal chat with the principal tree officer. The stump that you can see there is actually a very old dead stump. It's actually got fungus growing on it, and the vegetation that you can see just behind it is the sapling that will be removed, and there is mitigation being proposed in the form of additional landscaping. So yes, the stump will be removed as part of this scheme.
Any other questions, members?
Question, is there a food bin there?
Yeah, and that will be removed as part of this application.
Relocated.
yeah. Councillor Brossard, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Basha, if I understand it correctly, when we're looking at this, is the footpath on the left-hand side adjacent to the hedge?
That is correct. You can just about see some of the edging there, and then it runs across to the road to the north.
Because looking, in fact, on page 25, it does actually appear that the parking bay overlaps on the footpath, but I think that's probably just a technical aspect of it. The hatch section seems to flow into on page 25.
Yeah, that's the red line. It's not
the red line.
It's not the parking base. It's the area that.
Right. Okay then. So there's no need then to provide any guardrail then adjacent to the footpath to provide some protection, shall we say, for the pedestrians.
As you'll see on page 27, that's probably a clearer plan of the proposed parking, and then there's going to be vegetation or landscaping around it.
Yes, that's clearer.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
As you can see on 27, what's shown is the red line of the application site, and the parking bays are within that. Yeah. Any other questions, members? Okay, so there's no other questions. I'll move the officer's recommendation,
Page 29.
which is on page 29, and there is an amendment on the supplementary report on page 1. I think there's only one page anyway. If I have a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Angel. Once again, this is parking bays which are sorely needed within Bracknell Forest, and I think it's a laudable application. Does a seconder wish to speak?
Sorry, other than to support the motion, and it's an ongoing sort of policy that we have, and it helps residents in terms of parking, particularly in the evenings and weekends, that sort of period. So it's very welcome.
Any other member wish to speak? Councillor Mrs Hayes.
So of course I would go with this because, as Councillor Angel just said, it is a necessity, because not only taking it where the spaces will accommodate the cars off the road as such, but I would ask that you take the policy requirement of, even if it's only to put in the piping, even if it's not the insulation of EV, but the piping is there for the future. This I would ask that it be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Hayes. Any other member wish to speak? Okay, as nobody's spoken against it, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour to approve, please show. Thank you. That's carried. We move on then to agenda item 7 on page 31, which is land at Peacock Meadows. Basher.
That'd be Paul Corbett.
Oh, I'm sorry,
presenting this
Paul.
one. He's
Paul,
online.
I'm cutting you out there. Paul, over to you.
Good evening, committee. This is Paul Corbett, the case officer presenting this case to you this evening. I'm just going to call up my presentation. I trust everyone can see that header page that's come up.
Yeah, we can. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Okay, planning permission is sought for the installation of 4 public artworks. The application before you this evening has been reported to the planning committee as it is a scheme which the executive director, Place and Planning and Regeneration, is responsible for promoting. The proposed public art installations are primarily being located in existing public open spaces, Peacock Meadows and Jennets Hill, with the exception of one piece which is in Fulmer Square, which is the only installation that would be installed in close proximity to residential properties. The permission sought for 2 artworks by the artist Tim Wald at Fulmer Square and Jennets Hill open space, and a further 2 pieces by the artist Kerry Lemon at Peacock Meadow. Can see the illustration there of the location of those. Is that large enough? Everyone can see that clearly?
You can see that fine. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. So the artists that have been commissioned to undertake these works developed the sculpture designs by engaging with local schools, colleges and residential communities, including a project team through public consultation workshops, which was carried out in the spring of 2022. So the first sculpture that I'm going to show you is the Jennets Hill Dandelion and Dragonfly sculpture. That's the one on the right of the illustration there for locational purposes. You can see the dragonfly just on the right there. I'll just move to a larger. Sure what's going on here. Just, yeah. So there are two pieces by Tim Ward, the artist. So we've got the dragonfly on the right-hand side there, and which is at the intersection of a pathway going through the open space at Jennets Hill, and Fulmer Square, which is a more urbanised area, which is a square, and you can see there's an alignment. The small red dots show the alignment of the sculpture that will be installed there. That's a larger view of the actual square and the in-flight sculpture that's going to be placed there. So the Fulmer Square in-flight sculptures, as I said, this is an artwork by Tim Ward and comprises 5 6-metre high steel sculptures displaying a line of fulmars, which are a grey-white seabird, in a sequence of flight with wingtips just touching the surface of the sea. The 3D modelled fulmars are fabricated in mild steel to be mounted on steel tubular columns, with all steel to have protective powder-coated finishes. The ripples around the columns are representative of the sea and constructed of layers of mild stainless steel. The column structures themselves will be robust, durable, and mounted on a precast concrete base with fixing bolts. These particular sculptures visually link the other features in Peacock Meadow and Jennets Hill, promoting healthy living, walking, running, cycling around Jennets Park. Then we can see the actual sculptures there. And the typical concrete foundation detail, which will bolt them into the ground. As you can see, there's the tallest one, or the wingtip, is at approximately 6 meters. So in terms of the dandelion and dragon sculpture, as I said, that is in the public open space and is at the intersection of the pathways going through the public space there. And this is the particular sculpture of the dragonfly. It's a dandelion and dragonfly, just to be correct. And this comprises a single 5.2 meter high steel sculpture displaying a giant dandelion seed head with a dragonfly, which represents the hopes and wishes symbolized by the tradition of making a wish whilst blowing the seeds away. The sculpture relates to the biodiversity of the surrounding landscape and environment. The art feature is located by the crossing point junction of the walkway near the play areas. The dandelion head and roll tube stem will be created in a marine grade stainless steel, and the 3D model dragonfly in a mild steel with protective powder coated finish. Again, the sculpture will be a robust, durable, and mounted on a precast underground concrete base with fixing bolts, as you can see in the illustration there. And then the additional 2 artworks or sculptures are representative of skylarks. This particular artwork is created by Kerry Lemon and comprises a series of 2 complementary uplifting monumental sculptures to celebrate the skylark with a total height of 6 meters and 4 meters respectively. The sculptures themselves will be constructed from weathering steel, shot blasted for natural even finish. The terracotta colour is reflective of the local brick in the surrounding homes. The works incorporate low maintenance design materials and designed with a tapered finish to prevent any climbing. As you can see there. And the two sculptures themselves will be designed to be in sight of each other. There is a link between all the sculptures. The first piece is nearest to the car park and be in front of a line of trees. The second piece is at the highest point located at the edge of the meadow area to prevent visitors walking over the potential skylark nesting sites. The single bird sculpture reflects the skylights during their solitary period between November and February, whilst they hold on to their territory. The piece with the multiple birds, which will be located on higher ground, reflects the family breeding season between March and October. This is just some details regarding the specifications of these sculptures. And the artists themselves have created a visual which is very useful, and you can appreciate the scale of this on the highest point in Peacock Meadow. Development plan policies support the provision of well-designed and integrated public art. The scale of these various sculptures not only create a sense of place, but also iconic landmarks within each of their individual settings. And in this case, the sculptures in the parkland settings would be viewable from multiple levels with 360-degree viewpoints across the Peacock Meadows, as well as Jennets Hill. No public safety concerns have arisen from these proposals, and no other representations have been received. It is considered that the proposed sculptures are acceptable in each of their individual settings and would not result in any adverse impact on the character and appearance of the surrounding area, highway safety, or residential amenities of occupiers of the neighbouring properties. It's therefore considered that the proposed development complies with the Council's development plan policies and is recommended for approval as set out in the report. There's just one other item I wish to draw to the committee's attention. I just picked up during my preparation of my presentation that one of the references was left out, so I've just highlighted that there. So that needs to be added to the list of approved documents. So it's drawing reference JP1C. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions, members? Okay, Councillor Virgo, then Councillor Barnard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul, no criticism to this because I'm absolutely for it, of course. But do we have materials that would not allow graffiti? In other words, are the bases kind of coated so that if graffiti's on it, it's very easy to remove?
I believe they're all, because as going by the spec that I've read, the specification is of steel construction. So I can imagine that it would be very hard for certain paints probably to adhere to those. But they could probably easily be cleaned as well. I think they designed for ease of maintenance.
Is it possible just before it's approved that we could just check that, because we don't want to be stuck with graffiti on it and then we can't remove it?
Yeah, I've got no details to check immediately here this evening. I'd have to go back to the
Can we ask the officer to get back to
individual
you on that?
artist. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Councillor Barnard.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Have we given any consideration to the potential risk that birds will fly into these things, particularly on these open fields? Because I am aware that on higher ground, if birds are flying around, they can bump into things like this if they're not familiar. I'm just, it's a serious question, Chair, but just in the context of this, because the irony is we're actually promoting a sculpture of birds, and you see where I'm coming from. It'd just be nice to know if we've closed that one off.
It's not something that was considered. I didn't believe that would be a matter of concern.
Thank you.
Councillor Green?
Just wondered about the theft aspect, because it was saying that in the first one it's bolted to the ground. So is that something that could easily be stolen? Because the other ones, the last two, look too big really, that somebody will be noticed, but with the one with the bolts.
I think they're all pretty big.
They are sizable sculptures and would be somewhat heavy. Going by the specification, the bolts are, I think, below ground, so I don't think they'd be easily accessible. And I'll just go back to that illustration that shows that. You can see the Farmer Square bird sculpture. You can see that that looks like that's below ground. So if that's bolted into the ground, you'd have to firstly excavate before you even got to the bolts.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
There's one person on the chat.
Somebody on the chat?
Yes, there is Peter Hayden.
Councillor Hayden, you've got a question?
Thanks, Chair. It's not really a question. They do remind me of, there's a similar sculpture in the parks which has been there for a while, and I suspect these are much larger. And I'm assuming that there's not been any acts of vandalism or theft or anything like that from the ones that have already been in the parks for some time.
I'm being assured by somebody that knows the parks that there hasn't been. Do you know of any, Paul?
I don't know of any. I did walk around there, and I think by its very nature, because it's so visible and well used, I think if there was any vandalism, it would be reported probably very quickly.
I think they're great, by the way, just as a matter of, just as a comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? No. Okay. And no other questions? All right. As there's no other questions, I will move the officer's recommendation on page 36. There is no supplementary report on that. So if I have a seconder, thank you, Councillor Virgo. I mean, these are obviously, beauty is in the eye of the beholder when it comes to art in all cases. But I think that these are absolutely fantastic, and they certainly do catch the eye. And I think that they're going to be a great addition to a lovely estate. Would the seconder wish to speak?
Only to say the same as you, Mr. Chairman. I'm absolutely for sculptures. Sculptures and art generally in the public domain make people think of other things apart from their work. It brings out certain things of communication, all kinds of things. And to see something all over our borough, I'd be absolutely for that. So, absolutely, very good.
Thank you. Councillor Dr. Barnard.
Okay, and I think they're very well thought out. I think they will really enhance the area there. I particularly like the sense of movement in them and the fact that they are, bringing together those open spaces. And I would like to commend all those who are involved in this project to get it to this point.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Mrs. Hayes.
I have no qualms in recommending this with you, sir, because I can remember being on it was just a few of us with Councillor Mr. Councillor McCracken, when we did the parks. And it is the amount of times people go in there over these years, and there no discrimination against the leaves and that. It was just beautiful to see something put there. The only thing that I do think about is these are very high, which is great, because they aren't our poppies, which we do know have been taken. But then again, they were bolted. But I am pleased that the bolting is underground, not above. Yes.
Okay. Nobody else wants to speak? Then nobody's spoken against it. I'll just put it to the vote. All those in favour to approve, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you, members. And that, you'll be pleased to know, is the end of this week's agenda. So I'd like to declare the meeting closed. And Louise, if you'd like to tell me when we're offline.